Most people never become masters. Not because they suck, but because they quit at the wrong stage. They learn something new, maybe become decent at it, but then they hit a wall and assume it's just not for them. And I've been there too. And what I discovered was a 3-step loop that every high performer, self made entrepreneur, and legit operator uses, even if they don't realize it. I call it the Praxis Framework. And once you understand it, you'll be able to master any skill, build any business, and break through any plateau if you're willing to do the work. And by the end of this video, you'll know the exact stage that you're stuck in and how to move through it to finally become great at what you do. So let's jump into it. I used to binge podcasts, read books, watch courses, but none of it seemed to stick. I kept learning and stalling until I mapped out this loop. And this is not a loop that just works for business. This is a universal framework to work in any avenue that you want to pursue, anything you want to get better at, whether it's business, relationships, personal development, or anything else in between. This system will allow you to not only understand what's going on, but understand which stage you're at and how close you are to actually achieving your goals. And this isn't theory. This is what I've used on a daily basis to push myself to stay dedicated and disciplined in order to reach the results that I've gotten in my life. So let's break down step one. Step one is educate. Knowledge. Everyone starts here. It doesn't matter your background, your experience, or your degree. Everyone starts at the knowledge phase because you have to gain an understanding of what you're going to do. This is the input stage. But here's the catch. There are two types of learners. The first is a dependent learner. They need school, they need courses, they need hand-holding. Dependent learners are dependent on another person teaching them what they need to learn. And this works in a lot of avenues, especially if you want to go the employee route. But if you want to start progressing as an entrepreneur or as an independent, you have to transition from a dependent learner to an independent learner. Independent learners are self-starters. Their definition of college is the YouTube University, the Google degree, because they're willing to put in the time and effort it takes to learn something, even if someone is not directly teaching them that curriculum. And I truly believe that in order for you to make true progress, you have to transition from a dependent learner to an independent learner. This is very important because if you're not willing to put in independent work, if you're not willing to put in the work required when nobody's watching, you're never going to get that edge. You're only going to learn what everybody else knows. So this is transitioning from a passive learner to an active learner, becoming an avid learner about everything that you want to master. And this ties directly into stage two, being the utilize stage. And I've said this for so long, but knowledge is absolutely useless without action. And this is where 90% of people quit, because this stage requires massive trial and error, repetition, and discomfort. Because if you're not putting into practice what you're learning, it's never going to actually retain the way that you want. And you're going to forget about it. Because even all the books on my shelf back here, if I just read all those books and sat on them and just didn't do anything with it, then what's the good of reading all those books? But I would actively put into practice everything I learned. And it would take more time to learn certain subjects. I would read a chapter and I'd put it into practice, and so forth and so on. Whether it's a YouTube podcast or a Google article, whatever it may be, you have to be willing to put it into action. But this is also the phase that nobody really tells you about. They want to skip from sign up for my course to achieving your goals. But this is the place that most people quit. This is the stage that most people are stuck at because they're not willing to go through the trial and error that it takes to actually become a master. Nobody becomes a master overnight. Everyone has to go through these phases in order to really achieve something. And I'm talking about this from experience because I didn't just start a business and become a millionaire overnight. Definitely not. I've had over 10 failed businesses where I went in debt. I had credit card bills stacking up. I was making no money, but it was trial and error. Because after those 10 businesses that were absolute failures, each one I learned why they failed. And on the next business venture, I didn't repeat that. So obviously it took 10 different iterations for me to learn, but then on the 11th business, it took off because I learned all of the failures that I didn't want to repeat, and then I put it into practice. And that's the key. But this is what nobody talks about. This is the stage where dedication and discipline is the only thing that matters. And you have to be willing to learn and you have to be willing to fail in order to progress into stage three. And stage three is what we all want to get to. It's the achievement stage. But everyone is usually stuck between those two loops, and they're repetitive. You go from learning something to action, to learning it again, to action, to failure, to learning it again, to going through this loop. And then and only then will you ever reach achievement. You have to go through those first two phases. But here's the trick: achievement is not the end, it's actually just a checkpoint. It's the definition of restarting this loop. Because once you achieve something, you have to go back and learn something new. And then you have to go through the trial and error phase. And you have to go through all of these processes over and over and over again until you become what you want to do and achieve your goals. And that's what a lot of people I find get wrong. They think achievement is the end result, but achievement is just a stepping stone. Because achievement doesn't necessarily mean you're the richest person in the world. An achievement can mean that you had one successful business, you exited a company successfully, you had a great relationship, you read a good book, you put it into practice. But achievement is something that is forever. Because at the end of the day, life is finite. So you're not playing an infinite game. You don't have unlimited time. You have 80 years best. And that's how you have to progress, and that's how you have to think, because that's the process you're playing. So this framework I kept as basic and simple as possible, because you need to first understand the stages that you're going through. You have to understand the process that when you make the decision to become great, to become a master at something, this is what you're going to experience. And there's a million different things that happen in each one of these sections. But if you understand the overarching theme of what I'm talking about, you'll be able to identify which stage you're currently in and what happens in that stage. If you're in the action phase, you know that you are going to fail. You know that you're going to have trial and error that's taking place all the time. If you're in the knowledge phase and you're only dependent on someone teaching you, you know that you need to move to an independent learner. And if you're in the achievement phase, you understand that achievement is just a stepping stone and the loop starts to recycle. So it's an engine. It starts with education, it goes to action, repeats a couple times, and then goes to achievement and starts back over. And this is the infinite loop that happens on a daily basis of our lives, especially if you want to become great at something. If you don't want to become a master, if you don't want to become great, no worries. This probably isn't for you. But if you want to learn more about how to actually start operating and become an operator and build something extraordinary, hit the subscribe button. This channel is filled with actionable insights that I've used to change my life. And I'm not here to sell you a course. I'm not here to sell you some mastermind. I'm here to give you actionable principles that have changed my life, and I hope they change yours as well. So hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.